I want to thank all my kind readers who voted in my poll, and since there were several ties, I've decided to pick from among the winners, and I am going to now tell you about living on the campgrounds. So, when my dad got out of the Navy for disability reasons because he has MS, we weren't really sure where we were going to live. And at the time, we were living way out in Eastern Oregon, and since he needed to be much closer to medical services, we had to move west. And so we were looking at places in the Seattle-Portland area, and nothing was really affordable because he was still in the midst of going through trying to decide how much disability he was actually going to get, which meant that in the meantime we were getting like nothing, which was really fun because then my mom felt like we were going to live under a bridge, and she was really stressed out, and we had to go live with her mother, and her parents were selling their home at the time, which means that like my grandma would freak out every time we touched the pole that goes down the stairs because we were putting fingerprints on it, and anytime they were going to have people come and look at the house and buy it. Thankfully, we finally were able to find a place to live, and the way that we found a place to live is very interesting. So my grandmother and my mother were out driving around, house hunting, looking in the Portland metropolitan area, and so there was a lady, and she was hitchhiking, and she was an old lady, and according to my mother she was a drunk, but my mother thinks that anyone who drinks is a drunk, so I don't know how drunk she was. But so my grandma and my mom stopped and picked up this drunk lady, and they had a long talk with her, and apparently this drunk lady like gave them a tour of Portland and told them where all the cool places were. And my mom told her whole sob story to this lady, and the lady said, well, since you guys are, conservative Christians, you should really check out this place called the Evangelical Campgrounds, because that's where somebody or other that I know lives, and they rent it out for super cheap. It's unbelievable. So they drove the lady to where she was going, wherever that was, dropped her off, and they went over to the campgrounds. What are the campgrounds? The campgrounds are so the evangelical church in Portland at one time was thriving and really prosperous, and they went out and bought a big piece of land for themselves out near Milwaukee, Oregon, and they built all these different houses and cabins, and they built the cabins sort of like one by one. Every couple years they'd get a whole bunch of people together and they'd get excited and they'd build a little cabin, and so it's kind of like none of the cabins are matched at all, and it's kind of weird. But then at their very height, a seminary moved in right next door to them, and then they built dorms, and that was just great. But over the years, the church membership fell off a little bit, and they couldn't really afford to just have all these empty cabins and houses just sitting around not being used except for in the summer. And so the way that they decided to deal with this problem is to locate families that were in need and let them rent out houses for ridiculously cheap. So after we went through the whole process of being accepted to rent there, we ended up living in the boys' dorm. So for $300 a month or something like that, we ended up living in this place that had so basically there was a living room, but it's a cabin, so it looks kind of cabin-ish, lots of trees everywhere, and there was a little kind of second story, which is where my parents lived. It was just a one-room second story with like kind of a lookout, and then attached was a big kitchen, a bathroom with a urinal, and this was my favorite part, a clawfoot bathtub, and it was metal, so when you got in it was really cold. Everybody who was male really liked using our bathrooms. And then the main part of the house was actually just this big long hallway, and each door in the hallway had a number over it, so like 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 5 bedrooms in this house, but since they were dorm bedrooms, if you've been to college, you have an idea of what that means. It means they were really small bedrooms, so we had a lot of really small rooms. And I lived in room number 3, way down at the end of the hall, at the very end, next to the door that was sealed shut, that you couldn't go out of. And yeah, it was cool. I liked living there, actually. I really did. And it's where I met my best friend from high school, and she actually lived across the road from us on the campgrounds. And it was like a never-ending source of babysitting opportunities, because pretty much everybody who lived there had kids and needed babysitting. What else is interesting about it? Let's see. Oh yeah, so like it didn't have through traffic at all, and the roads weren't really paved, so it was really great for being a young person and just like tromping all over the place, and that was so much fun. It was weird too, because like, so next door to us there was a Head Start that rented one of the old cabins. And of course, if you walked a little farther on, there's the chapel. So like the chapel was 2 buildings down from me. And there were things like just freestanding crosses, just hanging out, because it's a church campground. Oh, this is interesting. So on the campgrounds, all of the roads were named after the fruits of the Spirit. So like, if you don't know what the fruits of the Spirit are, it's this list of attributes that Christians are supposed to have. So love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. And most of them were like Hope Loop, Joy Road. And I remember at one point they were putting in another little road, and I really, really wanted them to call it something like Patience Road or Slow to Anger Road, because that would have been so much more interesting, but they never did. What else? About the campgrounds. It was so fun to live there. I really liked it. Oh yeah, one more thing. So because they actually did use the campgrounds in the summer, that means that it was always sort of weird and voyeuristic, like, because we didn't go to the evangelical church, we went to the Baptist church, so we didn't get to go to their, like, summer things, and all these people are coming, like, to live where we live, but we were told that we weren't, like, supposed to talk to them or interact with them, so we always got to, like, sneak around and go, I wonder what they're doing, and we would go over to the chapel and try and listen to their services, and then try and run away really fast before they found out that people who weren't supposed to be there were listening.